AI has been moving at breakneck speed recently, and according to Google's CEO, the low-hanging fruit, well, that's all gone. Meaning that the next phase of AI innovation won't be about flashy new features, but about getting real-world AI applications into production and solving real problems. And to talk about this, I've invited Rahul back onto the podcast. Many of you will remember he's the VP of Product and Strategy at Couchbase. He's been on the podcast several times before. He's speaking to me today in Santa Clara, which is somewhere that I've always wanted to visit, mainly because I'm a huge fan of the Lost Boys film, but more on that story later. My guest has spent years at the forefront of AI, data infrastructure and security, and he knows firsthand why so many enterprises struggle to transition from AI experimentation to full-scale deployment. Whether it be privacy concerns or compliance challenges to scalability and infrastructure hurdles. Enterprises are now realizing that AI to production requires more than just good models. It demands a whole new approach very often. So, what are the biggest roadblocks stopping AI adoption today? How can your organization secure your AI models without stifling innovation? And how will the next wave of AI reshape industries from finance to healthcare and retail? Well, let's find out by getting my friend Rahul back onto the podcast. Time for me to introduce you to him now. So a massive warm welcome back to the show. For anyone that has missed our previous conversations, could you just remind everyone listening with a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, Neil. First of all, great to be back here to chat with you on all things AI. So, a topic that's pretty close to my heart. Just a way of introduction. So, my name's Rahul Pradhan. I'm the VP of Product and Strategy here at Couchbase, primarily responsible for our short and long-term product strategy focused on AI and data. So one of the areas that we are really hyper-focused on as a company is around this space of how do we enable developers and organizations to build these AI native applications, which are built on the foundations of agentic workflows and vector search and transactional and analytical data, which is a lot of which is kind of the space that we spend our everydays in. So excited to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Pleasure to have you back on the show, and so much I want to talk with you about because we're entering the third year since everyone went crazy over generative AI. We're seeing maturity, questions around ROI and measurable impact, all that good stuff. And so much so that Google's CEO recently stated that the low-hanging fruit is gone for AI. So, I mean, do you see that as an opportunity for enterprise to shift their focus from experimentation to full-scale AI deployments? What did you take away from that?
I would echo what Sundar said, because that's one of the common threads that we keep hearing even from our customers, is they are at a stage where a couple of years back, Gen AI was all the excitement. The whole ChatGPT moment really triggered people's imagination. And people started doing pilots and various different small projects to get started to validate whether they are actually seeing the results that they were expecting. And they actually, what they discovered through the pilots was a couple of things. One is, it is not, you can't completely treat AI, especially for this enterprise use cases, as a black box. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done in order to really build a production grade application on top of that. The other thing they are finding out is all these issues around security, privacy, and compliance. And then how do you bring the data that they have within their enterprise closer to the AI model, or rather move the model closer to the data, are primarily the challenges that they are getting stuck at today. So what you see is the POCs and those projects that get kicked off to validate some of these use cases turn out to be really well, especially when you use some of the foundation models which are open. But then when you start thinking about these broader implications of how do I enable these production grade workloads on my data, that's where the challenge exists for enterprises to go from that POC phase into production.
And I think many organizations are still hesitant to use external AI APIs and models due to security and compliance concerns. And many of those are quite obvious why they're so nervous about that. But there is a solution here. So what steps do you think companies should take to ensure privacy while leveraging AI? Because it's one of the biggest topics that I keep hearing again and again.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the top issues at the minds of leaders at these companies is so there are a couple of dynamics here. One, they realize the fact that they have to leverage AI in order to be successful, and it becomes a competitive advantage because everybody will be doing it, and it also enables, frankly, a lot of the use cases and the applications to go much faster than they have been able to do and achieve the kind of successes as well as the business results that they would have expected. The challenge, though, is comes down to at the end of the day, if you think about what any AI or LLM is it's really a model that is trained on a global corpus of data, which is typically what the foundation models are. What those models lack is specificity around the data that you have, which is what you need to combine with those models in order to give you the meaningful insights, the meaningful outcomes that you want to drive for your businesses. So that's where the conundrum lies for the enterprises is how do I bring this data which is all my private data and proprietary data with all the domain knowledge, combine it with that AI model. The moment you send it outside of whether it's your cloud boundary or on-premise infrastructure, you are exposing your data to third party. You are exposing the data that is going to be, even though it might go encrypted, you have no control over how the data is managed, what is being used to train, if the model is being trained on the data or not, and what have you. So those are some of the challenges that enterprises are facing of how do we get the data and the model close together in a security boundary and a perimeter that actually works for them. The other aspect is, and the reason why it's talking a lot about the data is without that data, the model, the inherent nature of an AI model, and I think the last time we talked about RAG and how AI models are probabilistic in nature, so they could hallucinate or give you the wrong results, which could have a significant business impact for the outcomes that you're trying to drive. So in order to eliminate that or reduce that, you need a lot more governance around the data that gets provided to the model, the kind of data that needs to get scrubbed and cleaned and combined with the model becomes critically important. And to do that, you need to be able to do that within kind of a boundary that you are comfortable with. So those are some of the key challenges that enterprises are tackling with today and are looking at solutions on how do I enable that to happen so that I can actually build an application that can give me meaningful insights and outcomes at the end.
And another big topic I keep hearing about is that achieving production grade stability for AI applications is a major challenge. So what would you say are the biggest security and infrastructure obstacles that businesses are facing, and why do so many struggle to overcome them? Because it's again, something I keep hearing about.
Yeah, I think if you look at what an enterprise really needs to do, right? It's what you need to do is to be able to you need to bring a model or multiple models within your security boundary, which basically inherently means that you need to have internal teams or capabilities in order to spin up infrastructure to run the model. So that's going to be GPUs that you will potentially run, go figure out kind of an open source or an open weights model that you could run, and there are a ton of them. There's been a lot of innovation on that front. So that's the aspect where enterprises are really excited about the innovation that's happening there. Now they are tasked with the idea of how do I make this work for my setup, which means doing it yourself internally within your boundary or going to a third party provider. So when it comes down to doing it yourself, you need to have the expertise in not just to to manage a data team to be able to clean that data, gather the data, which is spread across multiple different databases, typically in an enterprise, right? So if you think about a traditional enterprise, they have various different database vendors that become a part of their data estate across their transactional workloads, analytical workloads, as well as real-time analytics workload that kind of reside between the two. So if you, and then with AI, there's the whole rise of the concept of vector databases, which are really focused on using embeddings of vectors. That is the language that the AI model can talk to. So now you have this disparate data estate that you need to manage. So not only do you need a team to manage that, you also need essentially a team that is proficient in the AI ML world to be able to manage the infrastructure, to optimize the infrastructure, to run those models. And it doesn't stop there, right? Because at the end of the day, even if you provide the model with the data, now you need to figure out if the model is giving you the outcome that you expected or not. So there's the whole aspect of evaluation and traceability of what the model actually gave, the output the model gave you, whether it corroborates with what you were expecting or does it aligns with some of your corporate policies, and then making that determination of whether that's an output that is worth using or not. And that's where a lot of these enterprises are really focused on figuring out how do they actually fine tune some of the models with the domain data that they have. Either they do that at inference time or do the fine tuning by pre-training the model with these augmenting the data that they have. So those are some, as you can imagine, the challenges that they are looking at this vary from not just being able to get the data in the door to getting the AI models to work with the data and everything in the middle in order to validate the workflow for these models. And all of this, by the way, if you're doing an application, like one of the things that we are focused on today, or we have got used to, is just the responsiveness of applications in general. And now, especially when you think about AI applications, one of the expectations is you just converse with an application, whether it is through a natural language, whether it's a chat bot or you're talking to an application. What that means is when you have that kind of a real-time communication, the performance and the latency become even more critical. Like how many times have we tried to chat or have a conversation with a voice assistant, and if there is a lag involved, it's a lot of time people just tune away because you feel like it's not doing it enough or putting an obstacle in your way versus you actually going and typing something and getting it done. Right. So those are some of the things where the expectations is heightened. There's an expectation that applications are going to be hyper contextual. They're going to be real time. They're going to talk to you in the language that you can converse in. And by the way, they're going to do all of that with the data variety and the formats that you have within a typical enterprise in a real time, such that there's no perceived lag. So that is a enormous challenge for an enterprise to be able to take on their own.
And organizations that are aiming to build AI solutions autonomously, a problem they run into is usually scalability issues sooner or later. So any key factors that companies should consider to ensure that their AI applications can handle enterprise level demands?
Yeah, no, I think the performance and scalability issues that you highlighted, those are like probably the most paramount for an enterprise when they are betting their business on applications or their applications run their businesses. So for them, the key thing is how do they make sure that they reduce some of these latency lags that they will see, and this happens at the end of the day. It's going to be, you will have the laws of physics to go with this. So it takes a few minutes or a few seconds or microseconds for the data to traverse boundaries. But at the end of it, being able to have it or rationalize your data platform in a way that you have a store or a database that can actually manage not just your transactional data that your applications need a lot of times to provide you insight on the existing session that a user may have with you, or the historical analytical data, to be able to do that processing and to be able to share that across the different agents, if you will, which is kind of the new AI native way of doing things. To do that is critically important for them. So just making sure that you rationalize your data estate, being able to bring the AI model closer to the data itself, and then be able to actually validate the output of the AI model. Those are some of the steps that they need to implement in order to get to a more deterministic output from these models, which are all inherently probabilistic in nature. So you're trying to solve a problem which is basically a probabilistic output and trying to get a deterministic outcome from it.
And another theme I'm hearing at tech conferences, if you're hearing about an issue in the IT infrastructure through a support ticket being raised, you're already too late. You've already failed.
Yeah.
There needs to be a more of a proactive than reactive approach to that stuff. And as a result, observability tools are becoming essential for all AI operations. So how can organizations use them to improve visibility, but also detect issues earlier and accelerate their AI deployments too?
No, I think this is a great point in terms of how do you make sure that you are not you're not coming out as reactive, especially when you're building these AI applications. Because again, where we are now just anchored on in terms of our experiences with the applications is going to be that these applications are all real time. They are going to react to us in the moment, which means that if there is a human in the loop who is actually going to look at the observability of this and react to it, or file, or for the user to file a support ticket, it is actually too late already. So this is where, again, kind of a lot of use cases leverage AI in order to solve these problems too. So what that inherently means is you not just have one model, you may have multiple models within your overall app ecosystem in order to look at the data, the output of the previous models, and then run it through an AI in order to actually give you the tree or triage the outcome in order to give you the analysis and synthesis, which can then help you make the decisions that you need to make in much more real time than you would have otherwise.
And if we do dare to look beyond the technology just for a moment, something even more important that often gets neglected or even forgotten is the cultural or organizational shifts that are needed to move AI from that proof of concept to production grade applications successfully. So any tips or advice around that? Because I think very often we get distracted by AI, by technology, where it is the organizational shift and the cultural or the culture within an organization that's so important too, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is, I mean, as much as it's a technology shift, I think it's also a cultural shift for a lot of organizations. Because in the past, what had happened is you've always had these AI teams who are really focused on machine learning and some on building their own models and algorithms, but they were always very siloed from your typical developer teams or the database teams. And now with AI coming together, there's a merger of the two teams going on in a lot of places, where now it's also the developer's responsibility in order to build the AI native applications, to be able to be conversant with it, to be able to know what it means to leverage AI, and understands all the nuances that go with AI and ML that previously they didn't have to worry about. So what that means is, from an organization perspective, you need to have strong leadership and a vision of where you are trying to go. Going back to how we started, there is a lot of there's a lot of value that can be had from AI, but it's also very important to think about where you are leveraging AI and the outcomes you're trying to drive. So having that strong executive leadership and vision is absolutely important in the AI space. And then what it means is, as you go down that journey, it's really important to make sure you're in a way upskilling your talent and hiring the people or developing the talent internally who can actually learn more about AI and the effective use of AI. This is a lot around governance of AI. There's a lot around how do I ensure that I'm not compromising my company assets when it comes to AI, especially if people are using any of the publicly available APIs and models. So that becomes critically important. And then having that all of the teams that I talked about, making sure that there's a cross-functional alignment across the teams, employees and the engineering team as well as across the company. Everybody is aware and there's a transparent communication in terms of what does AI mean, how do you effectively use it? Because at the end of the day, it's for a company to be successful, it's not just the application, it's also how the internal teams leverage AI that is going to make it a success for the way they operate and the way they are going to be faster at executing some of the workflows that they have been doing for the past several years. So there's a change management and there is education that companies need to be aware of.
And I'm curious, from everything that you're seeing here across multiple industries, are there any particular industries that you see as maybe best positioned to take advantage of the current lull in major AI advancements and build and deploy scalable AI-driven solutions and maybe even get a competitive edge as a result? Do any industries seem to be moving quicker than others?
No, I think there is. So if I look at the opportunity, right, I think the fundamental thing with AI is it has an opportunity to it is an opportunity that a company in any industry can leverage. Right. So if you look at where we have come from is a lot of these companies are in varying stages of their digital transformation journeys. I think what that means is you're inherently used to the old processes of having your employees work with workflows such that the workflows can be leverage applications and data on the back end in order to do some manual activities. Now you're starting to get into a world where all of those workflows can potentially get automated, and now you can have those workflows or the employees come back and check in on a workflow to make sure a workflow is getting executed. Right. So it becomes more about what a single person might or a team of people might be doing, working across multiple different applications to now one person potentially looking at the output of that application, which is going through these multiple workflows to kind of get to that outcome. As a result of that, I think the application of that across the industry becomes pretty widespread. So the few industries that we see really jumping out, healthcare is one area that people are really excited about what it means for health in terms of whether it's patient care, new drug discovery, as well as some of the impacts it can have on diagnosing and potentially finding cures for the medicines that for diseases that we haven't been able to so far. The other industries that stand out, and this is an industry or a vertical that has been doing a lot in this space, is around financial services, right? So if you have fraud detection, automated document processing, and things like that, those have been going on in the financial industry for a while. But now with AI and the focus on AI, there's a lot more. They can accelerate some of those capabilities that they were trying to build themselves. And then one common thread that we see is around just customer service, whether it's a travel industry, kind of chatbots or agents to help you build itineraries and plan trips for you, or even in the retail space, which is really interesting and fascinating, especially kind of the space that we sit in the stack, where you have the capability now to dynamically look at the content on the shelf, figure out where things are based on the color that you're looking for, whether I want blue shoes or green shoes, and show me all the different shades of that color. And then knowing where you are, again, being able to direct you in real time to the actual location, potentially as a retailer, show you some offers and deals to entice you to go into a store. I think those are some of the things that have a lot of value with generative AI and can potentially accelerate the journey there.
So many great examples there. And I'm curious, if we look ahead, are there any developments in AI infrastructure and security that you think might evolve and eventually help enterprises overcome some of these challenges and ultimately accelerate adoption in the months and years ahead? Anything you're seeing here?
Yeah, I think I mean, there's a lot of excitement in terms across the various different components that go into an AI system, right? Whether it's the infrastructure itself around GPUs and that NVIDIA has and some of the other providers provide. They are constantly going at a furious pace in terms of the pace of evolution of the GPUs themselves and what that can mean, which basically is going to mean a lot more cheaper and faster inferencing, as well as we have a lot more availability of GPUs. What that means is that goes back to kind of like the Jevons paradox, where the more the AI becomes cheaper, people are going to use it more, and that's going to get to a lot more adoption of AI, and AI is going to get embedded everywhere. The other big component we are seeing or we are hearing a lot about are the advances in quantum computing. Right. I think this is again takes compute infrastructure to a whole another level. It brings with it also very interesting challenges on security and observability that we need to be very, very aware of. So the security space is in another space, which is continuing to evolve as we look at AI. How can we leverage AI in order to make our systems more secure and also essentially stay one step ahead of people trying to break into it? But again, with the advances in infrastructure, it means that you can actually process things faster. You can find ways to break things that were previously not couldn't be broken. So I think there's a lot of innovation happening in that space as well. And then lastly, I think a space that's probably near and dear to us is really more about the data. Is what does AI really do for data? If you think of it, is um, traditionally, all data that is stored in a database has been structured data, semi-structured with SQL and NoSQL. You basically had to use the SQL query language in order to get insights. But if you typically look at any organization, about 80 to 90%, or based on what kind of survey you're looking at, data is really unstructured data that is stored in PDFs and video data, multimodal data, spreadsheets and stuff, which was previously not easily accessible to your application, or not easy to parse that data to get some analysis or synthesis out of it. What AI lets you do is AI lets you actually manage that data, filter through that data, process it, and then get whatever insights you need, like, along with the rest of the data that you have, which is a structured and a semi-structured format. So for us, I think that is pretty exciting to look at the data variety that can be not just managed but leveraged by AI to get those insights. And then you get into going back to infrastructure a bit, because as you think about these models getting smaller, you think about infrastructure getting or compute becoming faster, you essentially have the capability to run these models locally on your mobile phone or on your edge devices. So you can actually bring AI closer to where the users are. So again, the component of mobile AI or edge AI is significantly important. And I think we are starting to see lot of innovation happening in that space, whether it's with the latest Apple MacBook that was launched, as well as some of the phones that Google and Apple are bringing to market, which have pretty much AI grade infrastructure within the devices themselves.
Well, so much food for thought, and a big thank you for joining me again on the podcast. The last time you joined me, you shared your insights and also added a book to our Amazon wish list. This time around, I'm going to see if there's something we can do for you. Is there a person that you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with, and why? Because he or she might just get to hear this. Let's see what we can manifest together. Who would it be and why?
So let me think about this a bit. I think if so one person probably that comes to top of my mind is basically someone that I've been following very closely, and then it's an area that I'm deeply passionate about. It's really working around this whole intersection of strategy, technology, and business. Is I read a lot of what Ben Thompson writes. He writes the blog trajectory, and he's been following him for the last, I think, for the last 10 years at this point. And the thing that I love listening and hearing what he talks about is really breaking down and bringing strategic clarity to some of the decisions happening, doing a forward-looking analysis, and a lot of times really taking a viewpoint that potentially may be contrarian, but if you think about the frameworks that he's using and how he's kind of articulating that, you kind of see those play out over a period of time, and that's when you kind of get into how core and the insights that he's trying to bring with his analysis. So I would love to have a conversation with him just to kind of learn about some of the frameworks for how do you anticipate these strategic shifts. The other thing he does phenomenally well, I feel, is just communication and storytelling, which again is really important when you're thinking about the future and thinking about trying to paint a picture of how things are coming together as these different trends are evolving.
Absolutely love it. Well, let's see what we can manifest together. It's out there in the universe now. Let me know if anything does occur. We'll see what we can make happen. And for anyone listening, wanting to find out more about anything we discussed today and find out more about your work at Couchbase too, where would you like to point everyone listening?
So we are, I mean, both I and Couchbase have a presence on LinkedIn and Twitter. So look me up and feel free to send a message, a tweet, or what have you. And I would love to connect with folks.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure as always to talk about everything from security and privacy, production grade stability, solutions for the future as well, and how these evolving frameworks can help enterprises meet challenges and ultimately accelerate their AI deployment. So many opportunities there. I'd love for people listening to check out what we've talked about today. Contact you at Couchbase, and also feedback to me. What are you working on right now? What difference is it making to you? But more than anything, just thank you for starting this conversation once again, Rahul.
Thank you so much, Neil.
As AI adoption accelerates, the real challenge isn't about building models. It's making sure they're secure, scalable, and production ready. So a big thank you to today's guest for giving us that deep dive into the evolving AI landscape, but also showing how organizations can better bridge that gap between AI hype and real business impact. But what do you think? Are enterprises ready for the next phase of AI deployment? Or will security and infrastructure challenges continue to slow them down? Drop me a direct message on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, just at Neil C. Hughes. Let me know your thoughts around that. And if you found any element of today's discussion insightful, maybe subscribe for more episodes where we can unpack the tech trends shaping our future together. This is a dialogue, after all, not a monologue. So please keep your messages coming in. And until next time, stay curious, keep innovating, and I'll speak with you all tomorrow. Bye for now.